Hello everyone, today we're going to be talking about an old favourite returning to prominence with brand new support, the Dark Magician. Of course, coming out with the guaranteed royal rare card. This is absolutely beautiful, as well as some of the best support this deck has ever seen in the form of Illusion of Chaos. This is going to be absolutely amazing. Now, there are quite a number of different ways of playing this deck. I wanted to cover off pure Dark Magician first because honestly, this is pretty damn good. I'm not gonna lie. It has been performing in, right now we're grinding through Platinum with it, at least. We haven't done our Diamond run just yet. But even grinding through Platinum, this deck is absolutely amazing. Consistently being able to go into your Dragon Knight thanks to the Illusion of Chaos, basically grabbing anything in your deck. You have 3 copies of Preparation Rites, which grabs your Illusion of Chaos. What does the new support actually do? Well, essentially, Illusion of Chaos is the biggest new card where you can reveal this in your hand to add any Dark Magician related monster to your hand, and then shuffle a card in your hand back into your deck. So you can add any Dark Magician related card to your hand, and then just shuffle something back, like itself, or if you have a brick in your hand, like your Denier, if you have a Dark Magician Girl. So it's a way to recycle back a lot of your bricks as well, which is really good, and something the deck definitely needed. And the other big part of support is going to be Timaeus the United Dragon. You can special summon it to your field by sending a spellcaster monster or a spell or trap that mentions a Dark Magician from your hand or field to the graveyard, meaning you can send things like a Rod, a Souls after they've used their effects. You can send Soul Servant to get drawn. You can send Salvation after it's grabbed your soul. So many things you can send off of this for a free summon, and then it has a second effect that allows you to fusion summon using itself as well, basically using anything on your field so long as the Dark Magician is included. So you can fusion summon into Dark Magician the Dragon Knight, which is absolutely crazy. It means this card is phenomenal. This guy doesn't even have to be part of the fusion. You can fusion summon out the likes of the Dark Magicians with it. So this card's incredible, bringing out the Dragon Knight more consistently than ever, as well as having it set up with your Eternal Soul and Dark Magical Circle combo is insane. We are going to talk about the combo at the end of the video, as well as a full deck profile, so if that's something you want to see, stick around and we will be talking about it. Before now, we're going to get into some gameplay, so if you like this style of content, like seeing what you're seeing, and you want to get even more new decks as they come out here with this fresh update, feel free to subscribe and like the video. Helps you out, helps me out, everybody wins. Let's get into game 1. Now, a lot of these games were recorded before we got the new Royal Dark Magician package and everything, but the deck list is virtually identical. Looks like we're going up against Sprite here, so Nimble Beaver is a good indication that you're going against Sprite. It's a very solid card in that deck. We are going to max C here, so we are going to be drawing quite a few cards. Sprite is going to be one of the up-and-coming top-tier decks of the meta, or at least everyone is predicting so. So let's see how exactly they perform against something like Dark Magician. It's going to be a very solid test of the deck. We were lucky enough to open up with a max C though, so that is worth acknowledging, of course. They're going to go into their gigantic Sprite here. We are going to Ash Blossom this because we have 2 in hand, so we might as well, and it is quite a powerful searching card, so we're going to shut that play down right here and right now. Then they're going to set 3 and pass. Okay, so still quite an intimidating board here. This Sprite Elf is stopping them from targeting any monster that it points to. We are going to Ash the Sprite starter as well, otherwise it would have given him an extra negate in the form of either Sprite Red or Sprite Carrot. We don't want to be dealing with that. We're going to imperm the Elf just to force it to use its effect right now, trying to target the blue from the graveyard. That's when we're going to go Call by the Grave. We plan on fully dismantling this board here this turn, so we don't think we're going to need Call by the Grave for anything else. So we are going to banish the Sprite Blue, which means it is not usable for the next 2 turns, and the Elf itself now is done. We're going to activate Dark Magical Circle, which will grab us a copy of Soul Servant. Preparation of Rites is going to grab us the Illusion of Chaos. Now we're going to use the Illusion of Chaos, grabbing Timaeus the United Dragon and shuffling back one of our spare souls. Then we're going to use Souls, pitching the Dark Magician to summon itself out to the field. We try to drop both Soul Servants, but we get Imperm. That is a big deal. That means that is no draws for us. However, the Soul Servant in the graveyard will still allow us to draw a singular card, so we still get some advantage out of it, just not nearly as much as we would have. We top deck into the Rod, searching our deck for secrets of dark magic. We're going to go Salvation here to set the Eternal Soul, and we're fully set up. We're going to send Salvation to summon Timaeus, then we're going to go in the battle phase, take out the Sprite Elf, take out the gigantic Sprite. Into main phase 2, we're going to link summon off these 2 into Masquerena. We could also have done the DPE here. We could have done DPE, but we decided to go Masquerena instead. We're going to go Gale Dorga which is, or sorry, Dogra? What is this thing's name? Dogra. They're going to go Sprite Smashers though, which is very, very inconvenient here, banishing both cards from the field here. Non-targeting banishment is the one way in which they're going to get past your Eternal Soul. So unfortunately, the field does get nuked, but that is a solid indication that the DPE would have been better. We're going to go Upstart Goblin here. I believe we ended up cutting that from the list, although it is still somewhat decent. We're going to grab Secret Village of the Spellcasters. We're going to go Eternal Soul here. I think we don't even use the Secret Village. I'm pretty sure our opponent just... they don't stand a chance. We're going to go Illusion of Chaos, shuffle itself back to grab another copy of Souls. Playing Souls every single turn is absolutely busted. Yes, we do activate the Secret Village, and at that stage our opponent just immediately scoops it up. We would have attacked for 2900. We would have activated our fusion spell face down to summon out the Dark Magicians, attack for another 28, and we would have had our Eternal Soul ready to go for the following turn. So that was pretty damn impressive. I believe this version of the deck, it was an older version we were playing. I believe we've cut the Village and the Upstart for the DPE engine. I don't believe we were playing DP here actually, but you can see how that would have worked in as well, and it just goes to show the versatility of the deck and the different things you can do. The Village ended up not doing anything in this matchup anyway, but either way, a fantastic game. Let's get into game 2. Already getting into game 2 here. We're actually going first this time, which is very solid. We're going to go Magician's Rod, which is unfortunately going to get hit with the Ash Blossom. I believe we are going to use our Call by the Grave here. It is pretty important for a hand like this to have our Rod resolve. We really do need that search. Again, ultimately we don't really need it because we already have Souls in hand, right? Souls can just go into DPE here like it's nobody's business. We are going to grab our Dark Magical Circle. Circle's going to check the top of our deck. We didn't get anything out of it, unfortunately. They are going to go Max C against us, which is rather unfortunate. They are going to get to draw one off of our Summon of Souls. We activate Soul Servant. Soul Servant's going to place Eternal Soul on top of the deck, and then it's going to banish itself to let us draw into the soul that we just set there. We put it face down, we just pass. We don't need to let them draw extra cards, we're simply going to pass and let it go. They're going to normal summon their Pathfinder. We're going to quickly chain Max C to that, just so that we get any advantage off of the Numeron draws. We know he's playing the Numeron network here. He goes for it. We allow it to happen. We allow this to resolve. Because... frankly speaking, I would rather have the draw, and there's no way he can beat us this turn, right? Because he swings for one, boosts himself up, swings in the Rod, boosts himself up. That's fine. So nice 4,000. We take the first hit, and then we use our Eternal Soul. We're going to resummon the Dark Magician from the graveyard. We're then going to use our Dark Magical Circle to banish the remaining attack left, and we're going to use Rod to tribute off the Dark Magician. The reason we let the third attack through instead of blocking it was so we could tribute our Dark Magician to add a Rod back to hand, so we at least have some pretty decent follow-up. But having Timaeus in hand even by itself is going to be more than enough. We draw into a Rod anyway, so it was a little bit pointless, but it's better to be safe than sorry. We are going to go Rod here on summon. We are going to get hit with the Forbidden Droplet, and you know what? That's just fine. Forbidden Droplet isn't that big of a deal against this deck once you're set up, because your Dark Magician itself is untargetable by it because it's a normal monster. Timaeus then's going to pitch our weakened Rod just to summon itself out to the field. We are going to activate Circle. We unfortunately didn't hit anything again, and it looks like our opponent here, they're going to negate both our Soul and our Timaeus for the duration of this turn, so that means no banish for us, but that's just fine. That's a trap card. I can use it during your turn as well. You're not saving yourself anything here. We allow him... we're waiting until he goes into the battle phase before we decide to banish his Megaclops, because he can't use his Numeron network so long as he controls a monster. He does tribute our Timaeus, which does kind of hurt. He goes to swing. That's when we activate our Soul to revive the Dark Magician, and then we're going to simply banish his card. I think we activate Rod as well. Yeah, we're just trying to maintain our advantage as well as ensuring we can use our Eternal Soul again and again. So we're adding the Rod back yet again, banishing his monster yet again, just grinding down his resources. He does go for another Numeron calling here. He's going to summon out all 4 monsters before linking 4 into Mech Knight, Crusadia, Avramax. He thinks his Avramax is going to protect him. We're just going to have to prove him wrong. We're going to draw one into Souls here. We're going to activate Souls, pitching our Dark Magician Girl, summoning itself out to the field. Then we're going to normal summon Magician's Rod to grab Soul Servant, so we can use our Souls to pitch the Soul Servant and the Circle to draw 2 Pot of Greed. Then Soul Servant activates Engrave for a second Pot of Greed, drawing 4 cards. Selene then comes out. Selene's going to grab 8 counters. We're going to detach 3 of them to resurrect a spellcaster from our graveyard. The Dark Magician Girl comes out but is immediately linked off into Access Code Talker. Crusadia protects himself from targeting. He does not protect himself from non-targeting destruction, so he should have gone into Masquerena first. We're going to banish that Numeron network, then we're going to activate Fusion Destiny, so even if we didn't have the Access Code Talker, we have DPE, which does the exact same thing. We're going to Access Code Talker, banish 1 to pop the Crusadia. He's forced to use Crusadia to shuffle back Access Code Talker. We activate Malicious Engrave, we activate Denier Engrave. We're just trying to put as many monsters on board as possible. The reason we didn't use the DPE effect there is because we knew he would have to destroy or spin back the Access Code, because otherwise he would lose this turn. We're going to swing for as much damage as we can muster here on this turn, then we're going to end our turn. And that's great here. We have pretty much on demand. We can pop whatever cards we want, except he's going to go for the Lava Golem. Lava Golem then going to Lightning Storm away our back row, completely annihilating the field. Very unfortunate. The thing about this deck is the moment you lose Eternal Soul, you're going to lose the game, but our opponent only has 1100 life points left. We normal summon Rod, and that's GG's. That's game over if you can't handle it. So there you go. Really sort of, I mean, it shows off how the deck is able to completely just churn through your opponent's resources. You're never going to lose the grind game because you're just continually resummoning from the grave, banishing cards, recycling your Rod, searching your souls, drawing cards. It's just incredible. You're not going to lose the grind game. As long as you can sort of ward off any back row removal, if you can get the Dragon Knight out as soon as you possibly can, then you're going to have a lot of success. Let's get into game 3. Of course, just like any deck, it is not necessarily going to be top tier, and it does have very specific counters. This deck in particular is going to be a very interesting way of countering Dark Magician, and it's not one I anticipated being a problem, but it's definitely one that's a problem. We're going to summon out a Dark Magician onto the field here. We're not going to be messing around too much with this Maxi here. We're simply going to normal summon Rod. We're going to grab our Dark Magical Circle, activate the circle to check the top 3 of our deck. We grab another circle, which doesn't do much for us. We are deciding, you know what, we're going to give our opponent a little bit of an advantage here, because if we can set up our Dragon Knight just like this, as easy as that, then we're able to set our Eternal Soul, and suddenly our field is extremely durable, right? So what happens here on this field, spoilers, we're playing against Exo Sisters, and you've probably realized right away that that's going to be a very interesting matchup. So this is your main combo here, Eternal Soul plus your Dark Magician of the Dragon Knight. So Dark Magician the Dragon Knight, while on the field, its name becomes Dark Magician, and your opponent cannot target or destroy your spells and traps. So long as Eternal Soul is face up, all of your Dark Magicians, like this one, are completely unaffected by card effects. So this guy protects your back row, and your Eternal Soul protects your monsters. It's a very difficult loop for a lot of decks to get rid of. So it is something to bear in mind. There are outs to it. Most decks have like a specific out to it, so it's not unbeatable by any means. But it is definitely, it forces your opponent to play in a very specific way to get around it, and it's not something that can't be repeated later on either. So they're going to go Cast Appeal here. Cast Appeal on summon, they're going to declare Dark Magical Circle, which is interesting. So the reason they're going to go Dark Magical Circle is because activating the effect of their Exceed monster, no monsters can now be summoned from the graveyard for the rest of the turn. So our opponent's idea was, we'll block the circle from being usable, and then we're going to negate the Eternal Soul. Sorry, they're going to stop the Eternal Soul from being able to revive. I don't think at this point they had realized that the real problem was going to be its on-field effect of protecting our Dragon Knight. But they do have an out. They're going to link, Exceed off again into Gibrine is their name. Some of these names are weird on the Exo Sisters, I'm going to be real. Gibrine here attempts to negate our Dragon Knight. Of course, it's unaffected. Then her next effect boosts up the attack points of all of her Exceed monsters by 800. That makes her Exceed monster here big enough to get over our 3k Dragon Knight. So they are able to get rid of it, which is very unfortunate. We're going to take 22 to the face. They pop our Dark Magical Circle. They were really afraid of that circle. They're not so afraid of Eternal Soul because they know if we use it, they are going to suffer. So they're going to summon out their big monster here, and then they're going to use this to get rid of our Eternal Soul finally. So this is a very interesting monster. This is their brand new boss monster. It's really cool. And I can't wait to play this deck. I can't wait to play as Exo Sisters. It's definitely on the list. We're going to go Dark Magical Circle, stacking our deck so we can grab the Preparation of Rites from our deck. Prep of Rites is going to grab Illusion of Chaos, and there you go. Just like that, we're able to shuffle back this useless circle to grab any card in our deck we want. Or I guess we shuffle back the Illusion of Chaos instead. We normal summon our Magician's Rod. Magician's Rod's going to get hit by Ghost Ogre. Ghost Ogre is a very interesting choice. It's going to be a good one in this meta filled with Eternal Soul. So that's going to be something worth playing. We activate our Magician's Salvation. They're going to go Magnifica. They're going to detach a material to, I believe, banish a card on our field, which is absolutely insane. And they're simply going to pass turn back to us. That card, 2800 attack, quick play, banish on demand. That is incredible. I don't even believe it targets. So that's the big thing, right? This deck here in particular, not only do they react to any summon attempt you try to make from the graveyard by bringing out powerful extra deck monsters, they also have non-targeting quick play banishment, which means that completely subverts the protections put in place by your Dragon Knight, which protects them from targeting and destruction, but non-targeting banishment completely circumvents that. Not only does their boss monster here have it, their Michaelis also has that same ability. So then they're going to go into Astrofield. Astrofield, then of course the effect of both it and Michaelis is going to activate. They're going to grab their trap card, Returnia, and I believe something goes wrong here. We go to battle phase, they swing for 28, they swing for another 28, and then they lose connection. I promise I didn't DDoS them. That is for all intents and purposes an L, right? Ignore the victory screen, we lost that game. I just really wanted to show off that particular matchup because this duel showed how not only Exo Sisters in particular are going to punish Dark Magician, but they're going to show off one of the primary weaknesses of its main combo, which is going to be the Eternal Soul Dragon Knight. Non-targeting banishment is a huge thing. Generally speaking, non-targeting removal in general is kind of tough. However, non-targeting banishment from things like the Exo Sisters is going to be tough. And then you can look at that and compare that to other decks that might have similar methods of removal. For example, Cheng Ying in Sword Souls is going to have that. You've got the Mathmech Laplation is going to get around that because it's non-targeting and it sends, so it doesn't destroy either. So there's definitely a lot of potential counters out there, and they're part of very, very powerful decks. That's going to be the primary gatekeeper for Dark Magician. Things like Sword Souls and the Mathmechs in particular, Exo Sisters as well, being a bit of a rogue option at the minute, although they might end up being even better than that. Depends on how far their new support carries them. But either way, let's get into game number 4. Alright, game 4 here. We are going first, which is pretty handy. We're going to go Magician's Salvation here, setting the Eternal Soul. We activate Illusion of Chaos. I believe we shuffle itself back here. Yeah, we decide to keep the other Eternal Soul on the off chance the first one gets destroyed. We're going to send Salvation to draw a card. We draw into Dark Magical Circle. We only sent one off of this guy because we sort of felt that our opponent had a delay when we summoned it. So we figured, okay, they've got Imperm, they've got Effect Veiler, they've got something. Let's see if I can send one, bait them into using it. They didn't use it, and now they're going to activate it on our Rod, which again, there's not really anything you could do about. Our opponent withheld it, made the right play, fair enough. So now we're going to activate Soul Servant here. Soul Servant stacking the Illusion of Chaos on top of the deck. It's going to allow us now to draw a singular card. So we've got the Illusion of Chaos for some follow-up, setting up our IP Masquerena, setting a card, and passing turn. So this is pretty solid. We have our IP play, which is going to be very good in this particular matchup as well. Playing against zombies, our opponent goes Gozuki. Now we're going to flip up our Eternal Soul. We do misplay at some point in this duel, which might cost us quite heavily, but on this occasion we make the correct play, banishing the Gozuki. Is going to Tribute Solitaire to go into Unizombie. We do that again, the right thing, preemptively before he can activate, bringing out the Unicorn, shuffling the Unizombie back into the deck. They're going to go Card Destruction, discarding the Mazira to draw an extra card. They're going to activate Mizuki, banishing it from the graveyard to summon Solitaire back, set one, and pass. And this set card is going to be a bit of a doozy here. We activate Upstart Goblin and our opponent flips up Shiranui style Swallow. We're going to pop 2 cards on the field. He chooses our Eternal Soul and our other Eternal Soul, which is a real pain. Now that the Eternal Soul is destroyed, they're going to pop our Unicorn. When Spirit Master was banished from the deck, they're going to pop our Circle. This man used one trap card to destroy our entire field. But we've got Illusion of Chaos, so we're all good. We're going to return the Illusion of Chaos back, normal summon out Magician's Rod. It's going to grab us Soul Servant. Soul Servant's going to place one of our Eternal Souls back on top of the deck from the graveyard. Excellent way of recycling your souls. We're going to draw one off of our Soul Servant. We're going to set our Eternal Soul face down. Our opponent has 0 cards and we have the Eternal Soul, but he does have a pretty stacked graveyard. We do need to be careful of that. Me in phase 1, our opponent draws into Shiranui Samurai, banishing the Mazira from the graveyard to boost himself up to 2400. He's going to swing into and banish our Magician's Rod. Now that does put us in a bit of an interesting situation, but during the end phase of this turn, we're going to revive the Dark Magician from our graveyard. Dark Magician being unaffected by any of our card's effects, but we are going to tribute it for our Magician's Rod, because like I said with the Eternal Soul, we're simply going to resummon it again next turn. Secrets of Dark Magic being an excellent top deck here. We're going to grab Dark Magical Circle from our deck, activating it, checking the top 3 of our deck. We of course didn't hit anything, because of course we didn't. We're going to summon out our Dark Magician yet again, using Circle to banish the Shiranui Samurai. It's going to quick effect banish the Solitaire from grave, and that was very smart. The Solitaire, whenever it's banished, is going to give him the opportunity to basically special summon back the Spirit Master. So that gives him an extra line of defense. We take out the Spirit Master, we take out the Mazira. Then we're going to activate Secrets of Dark Magic in the battle phase, going for the Dark Magicians, giving us an extra 2800 attack points to hit him with directly. The Dark Magicians then is going to allow us to draw a card every time a spell or trap card is activated once per turn. So they're going to normal summon Unizombie. We misplayed here pretty big, where we didn't preemptively use our soul to banish that thing. If we did, we would have been way ahead in this game. At this point, we sort of need to commit and let him just activate his cards. He uses his Felgrand Dragon here to target and banish the Dark Magicians. We could have saved this if we were quicker on the Eternal Soul, but we weren't. We wanted to hold off, and we ended up paying the price for it. But here, because the Circle was able to banish Felgrand, we're going to tribute the Dark Magicians to grab our Rod back once again. Rod every single turn. Because of the Eternal Soul combo, getting rid of Felgrand, and again, there's nothing he can do. We're just winning the grind game. He cannot out-resource us because we're continually looping back. We're essentially getting a +2 every turn, right? And then we're getting to draw into our cards. Because of the Illusion of Chaos, the number of really impactful cards that we can top deck into has grown massively. We're going to send the Dark Magician Girl, using our souls to summon out the Dark Magician Girl. We were planning on getting a big Dark Magician finish for the finale of the video, but unfortunately our opponent's a sore loser. They didn't want to see it. And there you go. Pretty straightforward. The deck really isn't all that complicated. And it's a lot of fun. Now, because you have so many more impactful top deck cards, your follow-up is just incredible, right? You just have the ability to follow up like it's nobody's business. Absolutely insane. Yeah, let's get into the deck profile. The Dark Magician, one of the most iconic cards in the entire game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Honestly, really fun. I have always enjoyed playing Dark Magician. I have uploaded it several times on the channel, but every time we upload it, we get cucked because it's not that good. However, now things are different. Now we've got plays, now we've got options. The Illusion of Chaos brings with it a world of possibilities for this deck. We're going to go through a deck profile here, talking about this particular build. This, I think, is going to be one of the best ways of playing it pure. There may be 1 or 2 cards you want to change or shift or do whatever, but I think this is the general idea of pure Dark Magician and the best way in which to play it. So we're going to be playing, so we're going to remove all the hand traps first so you can see exactly what it is we're talking about. We've got the double effect Veiler, we've got the triple Maxi, we've got the double Ash Blossom, we've got double Call by the Grave, we've got the double Infinite Impermanence, and I believe that covers us. So there you go, there's 11 spots with which you can go nuts. You do you. So here is the deck. We're going to start off, of course, 2 copies of the Dark Magician. If you haven't picked up the 3k bundle yet for your Dark Magician and all of your 30 packs, I would highly recommend doing so. Beautiful card. 2 copies of the Dark Magician. I don't think 3 is necessary. I think 3 is a bit too much in terms of, you know, bricking on the card too often, because like I said, you can get very, very easy access to this card directly from the deck to the graveyard through your Magician Souls. In fact, the only reason we don't play one of it is in fear of Call by the Grave, right? The only reason we don't play 1 is because we don't want it to get banished, because once it's banished it's not really usable, so we play 2, but you could literally get away with 1 if you weren't expecting it to get banished, because you will always be able to send it to the graveyard from your deck with our next card on the list, which is Magician Souls. Magician Souls can special summon it, so basically to activate its effect in hand, you will send a level 6 or a higher spellcaster from your deck to the graveyard, which will either be your Dark Magician or your Dark Magician Girl. It can technically be your Illusion of Chaos in a pinch if you've got everything else gone already, but usually it's the Dark Magician, and if he's already in the grave, it's then your Dark Magician Girl. So what does it do? So when you activate its effect, you then get 2 options. You can either A, after pitching the card, you can special summon itself to the field, or B, you can send it from your hand to the graveyard to resurrect either a Dark Magician or a Dark Magician Girl, which gives this card a ton of versatility. Now, why exactly would you special summon this instead of summoning one of your big powerful monsters? Well, while this card is on the field, you can send up to 2 spells or traps from your field or hand to the graveyard to draw the same number of cards you just sent. So it's basically a way of sending out some of your, not necessarily useless cards, but cards that don't hold that much value in the hand, or specifically cards that hold a ton of value in the graveyard, to the grave to replace them with more potentially useful cards. So if you've got multiple copies of Preparation of Rites, drop at the grave. If you've already activated your Magician's Salvation, this card's effect on field isn't that impressive, so after you've used it for its Eternal Soul Search, which we'll get to in a minute, you can send this from field to grave to draw 1. If you have a Spur Circle, drop it. If you have Soul Servant, this card is amazing in the graveyard, you can drop this to grave. There's so many cards that are either not useful or not so useful in your hand that if you have multiple copies of, you can't drop them, or they either have amazing value in the graveyard and you can drop them there anyway. So it's basically a way of drawing a bunch of extra cards. Then we've got Magician's Rod, the one and only normal summon of the deck. On normal summon, you'll grab any spell or trap card that mentions the Dark Magician by name in its text. So you get to grab a Dark Magical Circle, Eternal Soul, Magician's Salvation, any of these cards directly from deck to hand. So one of the best searching cards and starters in the deck, hands down. Definitely need to play 3 of it. Then we've got our DPE package. We've got the Destiny Hero Denier. I'm going to quickly cover off DPE now. We've got Denier, we've got Double Malicious, and we've got our Fusion Destiny, as well as obviously our DPE. So summoning out 2 effect monsters in this deck is child's play, right? Summoning out any 2 effect monsters is absolute child's play, and what you can do with any 2 effect monsters is you can link them off in the Verte Anaconda. Verte Anaconda then sends 2 of your Destiny heroes plus your Fusion Destiny to the graveyard, and will allow you to fusion summon out one of the most powerful monsters in the game, the Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer. So having these cards in particular are very useful. Plus, there's a lot of synergy between having warriors and your Dark Magicians, because you're able to summon out powerful fusion monsters like the Dark Cavalry. So they hold additional purposes. They can also extend very easily once they're in your graveyard and field. Malicious can banish itself from grave to summon another Malicious from the deck, so you can summon out your second copy free of charge. Denier then, if you control or have in your graveyard another Destiny hero, can special summon itself from the grave and return one of your banished Destiny heroes back to the top of your deck. So if you banish Malicious to summon Malicious, then you summon Denier, you can then return the Malicious that you just banished back to your deck to either be resummoned again off of the one you still have, or to be drawn and used as material for a fusion summon. So there's a lot of extension here that can happen as a result of this engine. The one big thing that people complain about when it comes to the Destiny Hero package is you don't want to draw into these cards. They are bricks, they are useless in your hand. Absolutely, I agree. Which is why the Illusion of Chaos is so good, shuffling them back into the deck off of this card. We will get to this in a minute. But one of their biggest weaknesses, which is opening them up instead of just playing them from the deck, has now been solved. It's amazing. Getting back to the chronological order, our Dark Magician Girl here, 1, iconic, 2, we need her for her name. So her name is particularly useful because she can be used as fusion material for a bunch of monsters. There are also a few cards in the deck that gain additional effects if you have the Dark Magician Girl. One being Magician's Salvation. We have another one which is Soul Servant, and we have finally the Dark Magicians, all of which gain additional effects if the Dark Magician Girl is in your deck or graveyard. So definitely pretty important to have here. Plus it's nice as an additional send off of Magician's Souls. You're not going to draw into it that often, you're usually just going to pitch it straight to your graveyard. So ultimately it's worth it for all of these bonus effects. Talked about Malicious already. Then we've got one of the new cards, Timaeus the United Dragon, is going to be your main fusion engine getting into your Dragon Knight. Searchable off of now Illusion of Chaos, so you only need to run 1 copy, but if you wanted to run a second, I would not blame you. 3 is maybe a bit much, but I think 2 is perfectly fine. I opted just for 1, but to be honest, sometimes you miss having the second copy. The second copy is kind of nice. What does it actually do? Well, you will send a spellcaster or a spell or trap that mentions Dark Magician from your hand or your face up in your field to the graveyard to special summon this card from your hand. So it's an easy special summon, 2800 attack body, which is nice. Then you have an additional effect where it allows you to fusion summon out a fusion monster so long as you include a spellcaster in that fusion summon. So you can use this card's effect to fusion summon. He doesn't even himself need to be used as material, so if you just want to summon out, for example, you've got a Dark Magician and a Magician's Rod that isn't very useful, use Timaeus to combine them into the Dark Magicians. Use Timaeus to combine one of your Destiny heroes and your Dark Magician into Dark Cavalry. Or if you want to, and what its main purpose is, you can use its effect to combine itself and your Dark Magician to summon out Dark Magician the Dragon Knight, the boss monster of your deck. So Timaeus is exceptionally useful. That's why I would even consider running a second copy, to be honest. Very, very good card. Then we got Illusion of Chaos, which is the most powerful new card in this deck by far, as one of the best engine cards, quite possibly in any deck that plays spellcasters. You really want to have this card in your deck, realistically. We got the Illusion of Chaos. What does it do? Well, it has an effect on field and everything, which is kind of useful sometimes, but its main effect, and the only one we're really going to talk about here, is activating it in your hand to reveal itself to your opponent. Then you will add any Dark Magician related monster from your deck to your hand, and then you will place any card from your hand back to your deck. So basically it searches out virtually your entire deck. What are you actually going to be searching for? The majority of the time it's souls, because souls is really freaking powerful. So this, if you think about it, like if you want to think about it this way, this spell card literally only searches for him. So you have 5 extra copies of souls, 5 extra copies of any one of your monsters, right? Because it searches for Timaeus, it searches Rod, it searches souls, it searches Magician, it searches DMG, it searches whatever. And then these guys can usually then search and extend into all of your spells and traps. So absolutely busted. This card single-handedly makes this deck so much more consistent, and it gives you so much follow-up because it doesn't have to return itself. If you've got a brick in your hand, you've got a Destiny hero, you've got Fusion Destiny in your hand, you've got maybe a duplicate circle, anything like that, you don't want to see it, just shuffle it back. Easy as that, and then you get to replace it with any card of your choice. Absolutely busted. We've got Preparation of Rites, which I said just searches a level 7 or lower ritual monster, which is our Illusion of Chaos, which is pretty simple. Fusion Destiny, we need it for our DPE engine. Magician Salvation. So Magician Salvation, when activated, you will set to your field an Eternal Soul. And because you're setting directly from deck to field, this card cannot be hit by Ash Blossom, which is pretty good. It gives you a way to get into your Eternal Soul without getting ashed. Now, why would you play this and not just a third soul? Well, that's a good question. Primarily speaking, it does have a secondary effect, but its main purpose is to be sent from the field to the graveyard after it searched for your soul to draw an extra card off of Magician Souls, which is pretty useful. But it does have an alternative effect. If you were to summon out a Dark Magician or a Dark Magician Girl to your field, and you have the other one in the graveyard, so if you summon Dark Magician and have Dark Magician Girl in grave, or vice versa, then this field spell allows you to summon the other one from the grave. So if you summon your Dark Magician, you also get to summon your Dark Magician Girl. Now that effect is okay, it's a little bit lackluster, it doesn't do much, because the only one you really want to summon is your Dark Magician. However, it can be a nice way to put an extra monster on the field, and like I said, it is useful just to be sent from the field to the graveyard as an extra draw one. So yeah, absolutely, I think 1 copy of this is fine. I wouldn't play any more than 1 of it, because like I said, it doesn't do much, but it is still definitely at least a 1 of. Then we got Dark Magical Circle. You can play this, I think in a pure version you have to play it at 3. This card's busted. Whenever it's activated, you look at the top 3 cards of your deck. If you see a Dark Magician or a related spell or trap card in those 3 cards, you can pick one of them and add it to your hand. and then whatever cards are left over you get to return back to the top of your deck in any order. So basically this will grab you a Dark Magician related card some of the time, not most of the time or even all of the time. Some of the time you get yourself an extra card off of it, which is at least nice, but its main effect is an effect that says whenever you summon a Dark Magician once per turn, you get to banish any card on your opponent's field. So Dark Magical Circle once per turn allows you to banish any card so long as you can summon a Dark Magician, which is incredible considering summoning a Dark Magician during any turn, including your opponent's, is a piece of cake. So Dark Magical Circle means you're just continually banishing your opponent's cards, which is incredible. This is the main way you're going to win the grind game. Circle plus Eternal Soul plus Dark Magician, that's going to win almost any grind game. Then we've got Soul Servant. Soul Servant is a great way of generating card advantage. It has an effect where you can activate it to place on top of your deck any card from your hand, deck, or graveyard that lists the Dark Magician in its text, which is pretty good. So it basically lets you stack the top card of your deck, but its main effect, and its much more powerful effect in my opinion, is that you can banish it from your graveyard to check the number of Palladium monsters, Dark Magician, or Dark Magician Girl with different names in your graveyard and draw one card for each. So if you have Dark Magician and Dark Magician Girl in your graveyard, you can banish this card from the grave to draw two, which is one of the main reasons we're playing this card to begin with. If you only have one or the other, you still get to banish it to draw one, so it's at least replacing itself if you were to activate it, but in my opinion it's one of the best possible cards to discard off of your Magician Souls, because if you can pitch this to draw one off of Souls and then use its effect to draw another one, it means you're going plus instead of going minus, which is real, instead of just breaking even, which is absolutely incredible. Then we've got Secrets of Dark Magic. This is a quick play fusion or ritual spell card. In previous iterations of the deck we have only used it for its fusion effect, which is what you'll be using it for 90% of the time, but it does also now have the ability to ritual summon your Illusion of Chaos should you need it. This guy does actually have an effect on field. Whenever your opponent activates a monster effect, you bounce this card back to your hand, special summon a Dark Magician from your graveyard, and then you can negate that effect, which is kinda nice. It's a nice way to put an extra negate on board, which is at least decent. You need to have a Dark Magician in grave, which you probably will do after having used this to ritual summon it. You do sort of have to neg 2 to use this guy's effect, which isn't always the biggest of deal, right? Because you're almost always able to get into these cards very easily, so you'll not find yourself summoning him very often off of this, but it is something you can do, so just bear it in mind. Otherwise, it's just a fusion spell. And finally for the main deck, we've got Eternal Soul. This card is the one that makes the magic happen. All of your Dark Magicians on your field are unaffected by your opponent's card effects, and once per turn you can special summon a Dark Magician from your graveyard. That's going to work excellently alongside your Dark Magical Circle, which will let you banish a card every single turn. The big downside of this card is that while it does allow you to continually recur your Dark Magicians, if this card is ever destroyed or leaves the field, then every monster on your side of the field gets destroyed. So it is a high risk, high reward card for sure. This deck lives and dies by Eternal Soul, right? So this is the deck's one sort of kryptonite and vulnerability, but at the same time it's also the card that makes the deck so powerful. Getting into the extra deck, we have a few fusion monsters here, just sort of generic fusions. This is the biggest one. Its name becomes Dark Magician, and it protects your spells and traps from being targeted or destroyed by your opponent's card effects. We did cover it in the gameplay. This guy, because he changes his name to Dark Magician on the field and in the grave, he can continually be recurred off of your Eternal Soul, and he is also unaffected by your opponent's card effects while he's face up in combination with Eternal Soul. So this guy's part of your main sort of lockdown. So long as he's face up, your opponent will find it a lot more difficult to get rid of your back row, and so long as your back row is face up, your opponent will find it very difficult to get rid of this monster. So it's a bit of a double-edged sort of protection. Double-edged protection, yeah, that's a new one. But yeah, it's a pretty cool card. Then we got Dark Cavalry, something you might summon here and there by combining your Dark Magician with one of your Destiny heroes. It's just a generic fusion monster. It helps, you can discard a card to negate a card effect that targets something you control, which is kind of nice sometimes. Other than that, it's just a huge body that gains 100 attack for each spell or trap card in the graveyard and deals piercing damage. Got the Dark Magicians. Once per turn, if a spell or trap is activated, you can draw a card, and if this card is ever destroyed, you can then summon from your hand, deck, or graveyard 1 Dark Magician and 1 Dark Magician Girl. You have to be able to summon one of each, otherwise the effect will not activate. You cannot summon one or the other, it has to be both. We've got DPE, of course, that's something off of our entire Destiny Hero engine. This is the one end goal of that whole engine. Once per turn, pop a card you control and that your opponent controls. If this card is ever destroyed, you can activate its effect, and during the next standby phase, you can summon back one of your Destiny Heroes from the graveyard, including itself. So infinitely coming back, infinitely recurring, infinitely popping cards. The fact that you're banishing a card every turn and popping a card every turn means that it's virtually impossible for someone to win the grind game against you. It also is one of your ways of playing around your Eternal Soul destruction, because if your Eternal Soul is destroyed, it will destroy your DPE, but at the very least, he's going to be coming back next turn. So it means that you're not totally losing everything off of it. Then we've got a Link Spider and Imduk the World Chalice Dragon, both of which are simply here because they can turn your Dark Magician into an effect monster. This one's a dragon, which is also kind of useful, but primarily it's just to put your Dark Magician into the graveyard so that it's there for your Eternal Soul. That's literally it. It also means that you can treat it as an effect monster for your Predaplant summon. Linkuriboh, same thing, just ditching your Magician Souls for something a little more useful. We've also got Artemis, which is here for a similar reason. We're able to drop our souls and our rod to the graveyard. This card was more important when we were running the Master of Chaos. So let me bring up the Master of Chaos. This card was more important when we were running this, because if you fusion summon this, he has an effect where you contribute a light and a dark monster to banish all monsters your opponent controls, which is pretty damn good. Artemis served as a way to turn one of your dark monsters into a light monster, which was very, very useful. In this version, since we're not playing, I mean, you can totally play Master of Chaos. If you wanted to drop Linkuriboh for it, I would get it. Linkuriboh doesn't really do very much. You can play Master of Chaos over Linkuriboh any day of the week. In fact, you know what? We'll put it in. We'll leave it here. It looks cool. Then we've got the Nightmare Phoenix. Nightmare Phoenix on summon, discard a card to pop a spell or trap, which is solid. Masquerena helps you link summon during your opponent's turn, and whatever link monster you bring out can't be destroyed by your opponent's card effects, so it's just a quick play interruption with something like your Unicorn or your Phoenix, which is dope. We've got Verte Anaconda, which you can use to summon out your Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer so long as all of the necessary cards are in your deck, which is awesome. You've got Nightmare Unicorn. On summon, discard a card to spin a card on your opponent's field back into the deck. Works excellently in combination with Masquerena to spin a card back into your opponent's deck during their very own turn, which is busted. You've got Celine, a Link 3 that helps you climb up even higher here. When summoned, you will grab spell counters equal to the number of spell cards on the field and in each graveyard. And you can detach 3 materials as a quick play effect to special summon a spellcaster monster back from your graveyard, which is pretty dope because what you'll typically do is use that spellcaster and your Celine to link summon out your access code talker. If you were to do with that combo, it gains 1000 attack points per the link rating of one of the link monsters used for its summon. So if you use Celine, that's 3 arrows, that's 3000 attack. So it'll be 5300 attack, plus you can banish link monsters from your graveyard of different attributes to pop that many cards your opponent controls. So you banish a monster from your grave, pop a card, and you can do that once each per attribute. And then our final link monster is Apollousa, Bow of the Goddess. Not a card I summon very often, but it is nice to have as a backup link 4, as well as a generic way to negate a bunch of monster effects. So pretty solid there. Again, most of the extra deck is pretty damn flexible. If you have extra cards you want to throw in there, not everything in here serves a ton of purpose. A lot of them is very flexible. Artemis, Phoenix, Master of Chaos, even one of your... You need to have at least one of these guys in here. But you can cut the other one if you want. But a lot of this is very flexible depending on what you want to play. But this is how I have been playing it, and it's been pretty good. I'm not going to lie. It has been functioning very, very well. Let's discard our changes. Let's load the deck back up. We are working on some spread decks. And yeah, I do want to throw the Master of Chaos in. I feel like the Master of Chaos is going to be fine over Linkuriboh. Linkuriboh wasn't really all that impressive. So I think if you want to play Master of Chaos in its place, absolutely. That could be pretty fun. This card isn't very good, but its effect to banish your opponent's entire field, it'll win you a game, and it'll be one of the coolest games you play, and you'll feel really happy that you included this card. But 99% of the time, you're only really going to be fusion summoning out this and this. The Master Chaos and Dark Cavalry, you're virtually never going to use. But yeah, that is the deck. It has been an absolute blast playing this. It's really cool that all the new cards are coming out. I love the new Royal Rare Dark Magician. Now that I've picked up that 3k pack and I'm playing it with this, I'm loving it even more. And yeah, that's it. You can stay tuned for more deck profiles, not only around the Dark Magician. We have tons of ideas. People in our Discord, who are even smarter than me, are coming up with really interesting and curious ways of playing it, which I will be covering off because it's a ton of fun. And yeah, if you want to stay tuned for more content, more deck profiles, more whatever the hell you want, more streams, catch us streaming all the time as well. We're streaming a lot over this celebration. Feel free to subscribe, check your rebell for notifications to make sure it's on. And if you liked what you're seeing, if you got this far in the video, like the video. And with that, I'll see you all in the next one. Bye bye.